All right, everybody, we're going to be going over some of the new rules and maybe questions that will come up with the faction packs for Star Trek Attack Wing that are coming out this Wednesday. We have the two Federation faction packs, Lost in the Delta Quadrant, and these are the Voyages, and the Independent faction pack, Adversaries of the Delta Quadrant. So we're going to go through each of the rules cards, kind of explain each thing. Most of the cards have already been showing off, and we'll show some comparisons. So we'll start with some of the new keyword abilities. In Star Trek Attack Wing, with the Federation packs, you're going to see a couple of new keywords, starting with Night Shift. Cards will gain the ability and or text listed after the Night Shift in bold and brackets that you'll see on certain cards, while your opponent has the initiative token. So we've included 2 initiative tokens in most of the sets, which with the initiative tokens are double-sided. One side saying initiative, the other side saying night shift. So whichever player has the initiative, you will give them the initiative side and you will take the other one on night shift, assuming your opponent is the one who has initiative. While you are the one with night shift, all of your night shift abilities will be active, thus being a night shift turn. And anything listed after night shift is also in play. Usually these are additional abilities. For example, I will show you Captain Harry Kim. So on a night shift turn, you treat his captain skill number as 5 instead of 3. And with his ability, after you remove an auxiliary power token from beside the ship, place a evade token beside the ship. But on a night shift turn, in addition, place a battle stations token. So this will be the benefits of actually having a night shift turn. So it's basically every other turn. There are some cards that will help you keep night shift if you wish. That would be coffee. But when the turn ends and you would pass the initiative token to the player to the left, you just flip the tokens over. So your opponent will have night shift, you will be the initiative player. And that is essentially how that works. The next keyword that we have is first officer, which I believe out of our previews, we showed it on Mr. Spock. So Mr. Spock has the new keyword, first officer. First officer will be in bold and inside the brackets there. If the captain equipped to the ship is discarded, flip this card over and equip this card as the captain. So essentially, if someone uses Gulmage Red and discards your captain from play, if you have a first officer on board, you may flip the card over and take command of the ship. And that means your skill will change, your abilities will change. It's a lot better than some of the cards like, say, the 2-point Worf and the Pegasus Riker, which they just kind of provide a skill for the ship, but nothing really else. So this way we let you actually change how things are. Now you will see first officer in Adversaries as well, but the trigger is different. The one that I showed is essentially like Vulcan as well as Federation, but other factions will have different first officer ability triggers. The next one is the lower decks keyword, which up to 2 cards with lower decks keyword may fill a single crew slot while equipped to a ship they share a faction with. So, as we showed earlier, we had Sam Lavelle, who has lower decks, and we had Torek, all from the lower decks episode. They still have the lower decks keyword, meaning that I can use both of them to fill one single crew slot on a starship. You'll see this on other cards within these packs. And the only prerequisite is, of course, matching the faction of the card with the starship. And the last keyword is Obstruct X. When line of fire crosses over the obstacle or ship with the Obstruct X keyword, the defending player rolls additional defense dice equal to the number listed after Obstruct. The card that we previewed that had Obstruct is Hikaru Sulu, the captain. He has Obstruct 1. So, for example, with that, say we are going to have the Equinox attempt to attack the Voyager. If your line of fire would cross any part of the base, then the Obstruct 1 keyword is going to trigger for Voyager, giving it +1 defense dice, which means it lets your ships actually fly and get in the way. And it's super thematic for Sulu. It's represented from Star Trek Undiscovered Country, so he's just going to fly in the way, prevent Chang's bird of prey from blowing up Captain Kirk. All right, so next up, we're going to look at some of the other new rules. So in Lost in the Delta Quadrant, we have the rules for auxiliary ships. So, similar to capital ships, all non-Tholian ships, as a reminder, the little Tholian vessel here, which you'll see right there, that have a hull value of 2 or less are auxiliary ships. For example, the Delta Flyer class was classified as a shellcraft when first released, but going forward it will be treated as an auxiliary ship. So the Delta Flyer will not follow any of the shellcraft rules from the current rule book. It will not have the restrictions for upgrades that are put on it. It cannot dock or launch, and it doesn't suffer the damage when it would bump a ship. This is just to let the lower ships have its own classification, still be able to fill them out. And if we wanted to, like how currently the build restriction is 50 points maximum per ship, you could put other type of restrictions for doing your tournaments or events at home and say, hey, you know what, auxiliary ships, they can only go up to 30 or 40. That's entirely up to you, or if we decide to do something specific. So the other restriction is that a player must have a capital ship, which is a ship with a hull value of 4 or greater for each auxiliary ship in their fleet, which is similar to taking fighters and shuttles currently within the rules. So other than the Tholian vessel, if I want to take a Delta Flyer, I would need something like Voyager with a hull of 4 or greater to field the ship. Next, we have maneuvers. So, of course, most of the stuff for maneuvers is very simple, but we wanted to include these rules, which are kind of scattered about in the official rules forum and hard to find in the rule book. So, for maneuvers, we have 3 main rules to follow. Modifiers to maneuver speed are subject to the rule of 3 per maneuver performed, so you can increase it or decrease it by up to that amount. Number 2, modifiers to maneuver speed do not need to be on the starship's dial, but the template must exist in game. So for example, if I were to reveal a 2 bank and I want to use Chemosite and increase it by 2, that would be a 4 bank. That's perfectly fine. That template exists. You would use the template and execute the maneuver as normal. If I was doing a 3 bank and using Chemosite to increase it by 2, I could not do that specifically because there is no 5 bank template. Same thing for reducing maneuvers. If I were to reduce, say, a 1 to a 0, there is no stop maneuver, so you couldn't do that. You'd have to take the minimum maneuver possible. The third rule is, if an ability instructs the ship to perform a specific maneuver by showing the maneuver symbols on the card or wherever the ability is granted, it does not have to be on the maneuver dial for the ship to perform. So for example, Admiral Forrest will grant a 1 white left or right bank maneuver, 1 white turn left or right maneuver, or a 1 straight maneuver. The starship, say for Voyager, who doesn't have a 1 straight, can still execute that maneuver because it is showing the symbols, thus granting the maneuver to the starship. So we just wanted to include those rules specifically so that way you can use them. Some other rules that we wanted to include rules cards for, because it gets brought up quite a bit, especially when Goss's Marauder came out. We have the Elite Talent Upgrade card rules. So, 3 main rules for this. Elite Talent upgrades are considered equipped to the card that provides the Elite Talent slot. Captains, admirals, some crew. If the card providing the slot is discarded, the Elite Talent upgrade is discarded as well. If the card providing the slot is moved to another ship or mission-related object, the Elite Talent upgrade follows with that card. So when something says like, hey, I want to discard an upgrade equipped to your ship, an Elite Talent is equipped to the captain. So unless something specifically calls out an Elite Talent upgrade, we'll not be able to target the Elite Talents off of the ship itself. As well as being able to recur things like with Goss's Marauder. I know people are trying to bring back smugglers. That's not something that was ever intended for use. So these are those rules. Next up, we have the new maneuvers in the game, which these you have seen before. Pretty familiar templates if you played in the OP events. We have the full about maneuver, which is the U. The full about maneuver can be selected for a ship to go either left or right. Players must decide which direction to go before placing the template. Very simple. If I want Voyager to move, I have to decide if I'm going to go this way or this way, then execute the actual maneuver. And it's subject to all maneuver rules, so we've got to pay attention to bumping. And obviously, if you fly off the board, well, you fly off the board. The next one is the impulse roll. It used to be called the evasive template, but Technically, the evade action is called evasive maneuvers, so we decided to give it a new name since it's now an official maneuver that upgrades can give you. The impulse roll maneuver can be selected for a ship to go either left or right. You must also decide the direction before placing the template. If you ever want to know, it's essentially a 1 forward plus a sensor echo. That's basically what the maneuver is. Fun times. We have the errata to the scan action. So the rule book, everyone knows how the scan action works, but the rule book wasn't always clear if it stacks. So when attacking, roll defense dice step. The defending ship rolls -1 defense dice for each scan token beside this ship. Simple. So, each stack of scan tokens per rule of 3 for lowering their stats. It's going to make their defense value -1. But we wanted to balance out the scan action with some of the other actions, especially the more popular ones like the battle stations token and target locks. So your new effect to the scan action, when defending during the modify attack dice step. So you are the defender, the attacker is about to modify their dice. As the defender per the rulebook, you may modify their dice first. Spend any number of scan tokens beside this ship. Convert 1 battle stations into 1 blank for each scan token spent. So what we're looking at here is we are trying to turn the battle station results into blanks. Now the opponent will be able to convert their dice or re-roll them after you have done your modifications, and then they can try to fix the dice results. We wanted this as a balancing factor to kind of brain down battle stations a little bit or have some interactive play. So for example, oftentimes you'll see in the enemy starship, they'll take the battle station to action. They're trying to get the best quality to hit you. Well, a ship with a bunch of scan tokens could change out the results before they get a chance to get them to have blanks. What this will do is this will elevate the target lock action, because obviously your opponent can then spend the target lock token to re-roll those blank results, hoping to either get hits, crits, and or battle stations, and then they'll be able to spend the battle stations token to convert the dice. So it kind of puts all 3 more in line and fair to play, and it gives a lot of the Vulcan ships and upgrades that keep spamming out scan tokens a little bit more fun play. All right, and last up for our rules, we have, of course, the new action cards, which I'll show you what they're provided by. The transporter room upgrade, and these are the Voyages. We'll add the transport action to the ship's action bar. It has another effect for taking the upgrade, obviously, you get like an emergency beam out effect. And the enhanced tractor emitters will give you the tractor beam action on the ship's action bar. It also has an enhanced feature because you're paying 2 points for an upgrade. We want to make the action a little bit better if you take the upgrades. So, how these actions work. We have the transport action. So action, target this ship and another friendly ship within range 1 to 2. So on our example over here, we're going to check range. We got it. Each ship must disable 2 active shields if they have more than 2 active shields. Otherwise, the ship disables all of its remaining shields. The reason why it is worded like this is normally in the rulebook, if something gives a specific number, you must do the specific number to be able to use the ability or action. But what we didn't want to happen is a lot of the transport abilities that exist in the game require players to lose all of their shields, which usually in game you don't want to do when you're heavy into a battle. So we just have it be 2. Obviously if you have less than 2, that is where that rule comes in play. So if you have 1 or 0 shields, you can just disable all of your remaining shields, which could be nothing, and then perform the transport action. When you perform the action, you may either redeploy 1 crew upgrade from one ship to the other, so just a straight 1 for 1, but it doesn't say ignoring the ship's restrictions, so that means you have to follow any rules that's on the card being moved, as well as the space that the ship provides, so you would need an open crew slot. The other effect is you may swap a crew upgrade from each ship. Again, not ignoring ship restrictions, so if one of these cards is restricted to a specific class or faction of a ship, you'll have to obey that when picking them to swap. But it is a 1 for 1 swap, so you just switch them over at the same time. and that's that action. The next one is the tractor beam action. You target a ship with a printed hull value equal to or less than this ship within range 1. So we're going to check for range. Pretty simple. We got it. We got the Excelsior in range. Now, this can be a friendly ship or an opposing ship. It doesn't matter, but they have to have a hull value equal to or less. So in this case, we couldn't actually choose the Excelsior because it has a much bigger hull, but we could choose the enemy USS Equinox. And what we do is we take the one straight maneuver template and we place it along the side, the lengthwise, and we pick up the ship and move it to the other side. But we cannot place it on an obstacle or another ship. So for example, with the Excelsior in the way, we couldn't pick up the ship and move it over because it would bump. We can't put it behind and place it back because that would end up bumping us. But we could either go forward or we can go to the left, which is entirely up to you. What this will do is, if you're using friendly ships, you can easily get your ship out of the way of an obstacle so it has free reign to move, maybe before it moved, maybe it after it moved. You might be able to pull a ship out of an arc. It helps those higher captain skills. You can move an enemy ship and try to mess up its maneuver. Anything that can come to your mind, you have the ability to do. I know it was asked online whether you could take a ship off the board with it. If your opponent lets you get that close and they're skirting the line, yes, you could actually tractor them off. The only exception to this is you have to be able to place the template. If you cannot place the template, then you cannot do it that direction. So as long as you have the room to place the template, then pick the ship up and place it. If it goes off the board, then it has been removed from the map. All right, next up, some stuff that we were talking about in the community, which is about cards that are errated. So what I'm going to show you is the original USS Voyager from the Voyager expansion pack. 30 points, same ability that you're familiar with, same slots, everything. What we've been doing is trying to re-release ships, crew, make updates, especially with these are the Voyages. Being an anniversary pack, we wanted to update and fix some cards that just didn't get a lot of love or are some of the fan favorites and kind of update them to the new age of Star Trek Attack Wing. So for example, the new USS Voyager number 3 will fully replace the original one. It is a point reduction, the same slots and stats, and it has the same ability. The wording is just cleaned up to have the correct timing, cost, and actual effect. And it clears up any ambiguity about whether it was a primary attack or not. This is the same thing for the Enterprise D. So from now on, this will fully replace this one. We have some other examples, which we'll go through. So as Voyager, obviously the original USS Enterprise D, 28 points, 3 crew, 2 weapon, same stats, same ability, is now replaced by these are the Voyages, USS Enterprise D, which is only 26 points. It's got that same cleaned up wording that we saw on Voyager. It lost one of its weapon slots and gained a tech slot. Now I know some players were like, well, I like the original because it could take Type 10 phasers. Well, you don't necessarily need something like that when we gave you Dominion War Retrofit. Dominion War Retrofit can go on any Fed ship. It will grant you any slot you want, an increased shield, and for a Galaxy, increased hull. So with the point reduction of the new one, you can kind of get a much better Enterprise D than what you had before. And you can have your 2 weapon slots back if you prefer. Next up, we have the original USS Enterprise NCC 1701E. 32 points, tech, double weapon, double crew. Same ability. You can fire torpedoes without a target lock, but it costs you an ox. So we made you a new one. But this one, while the same timing and effect, same cost, same layout, everything, just nice new art. This one has an end phase ability to allow you to flip the card over to the other side. So you can get that Star Trek Insurrection, more defensive, being ganged up on Enterprise E. So you now have the ability to flip the ship actually in play and have use of different abilities. Obviously, when you're constructing your list, you could start on whichever side you like. That's entirely up to you. Right, another one is the 2 Mr. Spocks. So as we saw earlier, original Mr. Spock, Same effect, if you got a scan token, when you attack, you may convert all of your battle station results into hit results. We upgraded him, obviously, with a couple of ways. He is now dual faction, Federation, and Vulcan. This is going to matter when you actually play him on Vulcan ships, because there are a lot of things that could reduce the cost of Vulcan upgrades, save Vulcan upgrades from being discarded, so forth. It matters more for captains, because a lot of the early talents are locked to Vulcan captains. He has the same ability. It's all cleaned up, just the new wording, but he got a little bonus. So if he's equipped to a Constitution class, this attack cannot be canceled. So that's added to his original effect, plus he has the first officer keyword. So he is a straight new errated replacement to the original. This one will be a lot more fun to play. And as of course, we have the captains. So the original one, 4 points, skill 6, target lock or scan action is a free action. Pretty simple, pretty fun. So we rose the point cost on him, but we increased his skill, made him dual faction so he can take those Vulcan elite talents now, and we gave him another ability, a very rare ability which allows you to interact with ambassadors and play with negotiations. So during the playing phase, once per game, you may cancel any active negotiations in play. The controlling players may activate their negotiations effect targeting a different starship. So this is your new Mr. Spock to replace the original. Other ones were just things that we needed to fix a little bit. Like, for example, Veritable Geometry Pylons. Boy, this card was not great. 5 points, locked to an Intrepid class, 1 per ship. Before you move, you disable it. You can increase or decrease your speed by 1, and it's treated as a white maneuver, and you can't do actions if you use this ability. That's a little rough to try to get Voyager to have a 1 forward. So we fixed up the card in its entirety. It is now 2 points. You can see that it is locked to an Intrepid and 1 per ship. It has the correct timing, which is reveal dial step. It only time tokens itself, so it's down for 2 turns, and it will increase the speed, increase or decrease the speed by 1, and you treat the maneuver as the same color as the revealed maneuver. So it has a lot more flexibility for the entire dial. This is one of those improvements we made, and this will replace the original one. It's probably wondering, well, what's determining what gets replaced and whatnot? Well, back when we did the first Romulan faction pack, you'll notice interface generator was changed, as well as the 2017 starter set. We ended up changing, tactical station. So tactical station became a 1 per ship. The interface generator also became 1 per ship and turned into an attack cancellation. So they were official erratas that replaced the original. It's going to be the same thing for these. The main thing that they're affecting are cards that are non-generic. So these are things that will be unique or will have the 1 per ship symbol. Now, of course, as we looked, this doesn't technically have the 1 per ship symbol because it didn't exist yet, but it was, in fact, 1 per ship, a non-generic card. Other examples of this, navigational deflector, expensive, a discard, cancels a hit. You could disable it instead if you're taking obstacle damage to roll your defense dice against. But yeah, this was not great, definitely overcosted. We fixed that up for you. Less points, clear on how it works, always only a disable, not a discard. You roll your defense dice against an obstacle and you add an evade. Systems upgrade, hard to find upgrade, very good. Main thing is it could fill any slot on your upgrade bar, gave you a tech slot, gave you a shield, only for Fed, 1 per ship. So we cleaned that up right away because with all the new symbols, you've got that right there. But for balance sake, we wanted it to fill only the slots that mattered for what it's essentially doing. So it will only fill a weapon or a tech slot now. It will still give you the tech slot and still increase your shield value by 1. So no more filling crew slots or random Borg slots or any other slots that you have. So this will be your actual errated replacement. And lastly, we have enhanced hull plating. This one definitely got a lot of changes done to it. Originally a tech upgrade. It could go on any Federation ship at the time. Could not have more than 1. But it was basically only once around, and of course you had to have no shield and couldn't be cloaked just to get those evade results and an ox per evade result. This is for the NX. So we locked it to the NX class. It is one per ship. It is when defending, so you can use this for multiple attacks now. And it is a starship construction card. This way we don't have to finagle tech slots onto the NX classes and not balance out the ship incorrectly by letting it take like cloak mines or something. This way, those classes of ships could take this type of card and still be built normal as standard, as we saw with the new NX-01 and the NX-02 Columbia. So this is how this card will be going forward for the Federation version. All right, and lastly, I know there are some other specifics that were being brought up. So the Equinox. The Equinox is reveal dial step, target another ship within range 1. This is either friendly or enemy. Obviously, you want to pick an enemy ship, but if you can't, a friendly ship can gladly donate a crew for you. You can discard a crew upgrade equipped to the ship and increase the speed of maneuver by 2, but then the ship suffers 1 damage. We're just going to load them into the engine. And as we talked about earlier, shifting the night shift token around. This is where we provided coffee. Coffee has at any time, which is in between any step or phase, if you have the initiative token, you can discard the coffee, black, pass the initiative token to the opponent to your left. That matters if you're playing a multiplayer game. Of course, These Are the Voyages does have a multiplayer mission. This will allow you to keep your night shift if you like, most of the time, unless you're playing multiplayer. And you'll be able to keep using your night shift abilities. Obviously, this is 1 per ship, so you could have a couple of these in your fleet and extend your night shift for a period of time that you would like. All right, and last that we're going to talk about is the Voyager campaigns, which I've showed off a bunch of stuff for this. I want to go through some more specifics about it. So we found only one actual error in one of the books, which is the redundancy text in the Adversaries one. Let's see, on the cover, first page, second page. So on the second page, it'll mention the auxiliary ship does not have its own roster. That is not true. You do get your own roster. So just ignore that not. It is correct up in the Starship on-duty, off-duty roster section. It is correct actually in the mission that grants you the auxiliary ship. And it is correct in every spot in the Federation one. We forgot a not, it happens. But yes, you will build your own Starship roster for the auxiliary ship when you build it. And you build it by doing the construct action, which is explained within the missions itself. Specifically with these, we want to make mention that they're designed for essentially a player running Voyager against the Delta Master using their Starship Attack Wing collection. So all of the difficulty settings, all of the starting SP builds are based on that knowledge that you're using Voyager or a ship of Voyager's scale. So like you could use a Sovereign, a Prometheus class, but something like that. If you wish to take something like the Equinox or the Raven, you're going to have a much harder time because it's going to be much harder to actually fill up those points. But the Delta Master and the player can decide to lower the points if you wish. Ultimately, the Delta Master will decide. He's there to create the challenge for the player to get through the Delta Quadrant. So it's not so much of like a 1v1 fight. I mean, he is trying to battle you for most of the time in some particular capacity. Sometimes he's after an objective and you're trying to protect that objective, or you're trying to use diplomacy to stop him from attacking it. These are just some of the things that you will interact with and do. The point of these books are to give you the tools, the player and the Delta Master, ways to play the game and experience the Delta Quadrant and enjoy the campaign in its whole. So when you run into any type of weird problems, or if it's getting too difficult, just talk to the Delta Master. You guys can curb those points in if you want. You can raise them up a little bit. We've also done it a few times where we actually ran it as 3 players, 1 player as a Delta Master. Once we constructed the auxiliary ship, I just let my buddy at the time play the Delta Flyer while I was running Voyager, and we ran together. We have run it for fun using some of the Alliance AI. We just let the AI like follow whatever the Delta Master instructions were. So if it was attacking a planet or a disabled ship, then we had them go after said object onto the map. And we, as the players, were trying to interact with them. Now, with that, you can cheese it if you want. You can be the Fed player, take extra maneuvers, and just fly off the board constantly at the end. Pending the mission, of course, just to get the basic rewards. The basic rewards include awards that let you travel from 1,000 to 3,000 light years. You need to actually travel 70,000 to complete the campaign. There are bigger rewards to let you make thematic jumps that Voyager did, like finding the graviton catapult, Q helping you out, Kess throwing you across Borg space, all kinds of cool stuff like that. But to get those rewards, it's entirely up to the Delta Master to pick them and give them to you, and you must actually complete the objective. To get the basic rewards, it's just not being destroyed and fleeing the board, assuming the sector condition allows you to do so, and it's not some other way you have to leave the board. There are tools in here for the Delta Master to combat you if you are just trying to speed your way through. This is where we have like the Transstellar Rally. You're going to have to do the race or distress calls. No matter what, the Federation player must answer the distress call, meaning they must end their maneuver within range 1 of wherever the source of the distress call is coming from, be it a planet in the Fed book or a starship in the independent one. So your experience in the Delta Quadrant campaign will vary based upon you and your Delta Master player. So however you guys want to do it is how the experience is going to be. It can be very difficult and challenging. You will probably have your ship blown up more than once, but there's stuff in here for that, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, that's all the fun stuff that we have. And if there are any other rules questions, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, or I'm in the Discord now, so you can ask away. But enjoy the release of the faction packs. They should be out this Wednesday at your local game store. Wizkids should be shipping them out. Thanks.